The space station floated in silence above a dying planet. Broken lights blinked weakly, and metal walls groaned as if the whole place was breathing its last breath. Most people had already left. Only the workers remained, the ones who cleaned, fixed, and stayed behind when others ran away. Among them was a man, a human janitor. He was small compared to the tall alien workers who once filled the halls. His gray uniform was stained with oil and dust. His name badge was half broken, and his old cleaning robot followed him like a tired dog. Every step he took echoed through the empty corridor. No one really noticed him. No one ever did. He wiped the glass panels and whispered to himself, "Almost done for today." His voice was calm, tired, but gentle, the kind of voice that had seen too much and expected nothing. Suddenly, something strange reached his ears, a sound so soft, so weak, that at first he thought it was just the wind passing through a vent. But then it came again, a cry, a sound of pain. A sound of fear. He froze. The janitor looked around. There shouldn't be anyone left in this section. The station was supposed to be empty after the attack. Yet there it was again, a small broken sob. He followed it slowly. The sound led him through dark halls where sparks fell from broken lights. The floor was covered with ashes and bits of glass. His shoes made soft clicks as he moved. His heart began to beat faster, not from fear, but from worry. He turned a corner and stopped. There, behind a pile of fallen metal, was a small alien girl. Her skin was pale blue and covered with faint glowing lines that pulsed like tiny lights. Her eyes, large, bright, and full of tears, looked up in fear. She was shaking. Her small hands covered her face as if to hide from him. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The janitor didn't speak. He knew sudden words might scare her more. Instead, he crouched down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. He placed his cleaning tool on the ground and held up both his hands, palms open, showing that he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." The girl didn't understand his language, but she understood tone, that warm, calm voice. She blinked, but her body still trembled. He could see a small wound on her arm, nothing fatal but enough to cause pain. Her clothes were torn, maybe from the explosion earlier. He wondered how long she had been hiding here. The janitor reached into his pocket and pulled out a small cloth. He tore a piece from it and gently placed it near her. "For the arm," he said quietly. She stared at the cloth, then at him. No movement. He sighed, sat down on the cold floor and leaned against the wall, not too close, not too far. He pretended to rest, showing her that he wouldn't come closer unless she wanted. Minutes passed. The air was thick with silence. Somewhere in the distance, a machine buzzed and stopped. The girl looked at him again. Her breathing slowed a little. But fear still filled her glowing eyes. The janitor looked down at his gloved hands, rough, dirty, and cracked from years of work. He wanted to help her, but words wouldn't reach across that distance. He needed something else. Something simple. He took out a small pen from his pocket. It was old, its tip nearly dry. With slow, gentle movements, he drew a little smiley face on his glove. 2 dots for eyes, 1 curved line for a smile. Then he turned his hand toward her and waved softly. The girl stared. Her sobs faded into small hiccups. She tilted her head, confused, curious. The janitor moved his fingers slightly, making the smiley face move. A strange moment passed. Quiet, warm, fragile. The alien girl blinked twice, and for the first time the corners of her lips moved. Not much. Just a tiny spark of a smile. The janitor smiled too. A real one, not forced, not polite, just simple and kind, and for the first time since the war, the station didn't feel so cold, because in that dark, broken place between a tired human and a frightened alien child, something small but powerful was born. Hope. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Only the sound of broken machines hummed in the background. The human janitor and the alien girl just looked at each other, 2 souls from different worlds trapped in the same silence. Her breathing was still fast, her small body shaking with fear. The glowing lines on her skin flickered like fading stars. Every time the janitor moved even a little, she flinched and pulled back. He didn't blame her. He knew what she must have heard about humans. Stories told in fear. Stories twisted by war. To her people, humans were dangerous. Wild, emotional, unpredictable. Monsters who destroyed planets to win. And here she was, alone, injured, and face to face with one. The janitor slowly took a deep breath. He spoke softly again, his voice calm like quiet water. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." She didn't understand the words, but she heard the warmth in his tone. Her eyes, big and bright, followed his lips as he spoke. The sound was strange to her, yet not frightening. He reached into his pocket carefully and pulled out a small light, a portable repair lamp. He turned it on and placed it on the ground between them. The soft yellow light filled the dark hallway. The girl blinked, her eyes reflecting the warm glow. It was the first light she'd seen that wasn't red or blue from alarms and explosions. The janitor pointed to the light, then to her, then to himself. "Safe," he said again. She looked confused. Then she made a soft sound, and almost a whisper, in her own alien tongue. It sounded like wind touching metal, delicate and strange. He didn't understand her words either, but he smiled gently, nodding, pretending he did. Sometimes pretending is enough. The girl's eyes softened a little. She stopped trembling, though she still held her knees close to her chest. The janitor leaned back against the wall, picking up a small piece of broken metal, and started to quietly tap it on the floor. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm was slow, calm, almost like a heartbeat. He wasn't cleaning now. He was just giving her space to breathe. Minutes passed. Then the girl slowly extended one of her small hands. She touched the edge of the lamp and pulled it closer to her. The janitor noticed her wound again. Blood, or something like it, shimmered faintly on her blue skin. He frowned softly. He wanted to help, but he knew if he moved too fast she would panic. So he reached for his bag slowly, carefully. He opened it and pulled out a clean piece of cloth and a small medical spray, the kind used for cleaning small cuts. He placed them on the floor, halfway between them, and slid them toward her with one gentle push. She stared at the items. Then she looked at him, her face still unsure. He pointed to her arm, then to the cloth. "It will help," he said softly. She hesitated. Her eyes moved between his face and the cloth. The light from the lamp flickered, as if waiting for her choice. Finally, she reached for the cloth. Her fingers shook as she pressed it to her wound. When the sting came, she gasped. The janitor almost moved to help, but stopped himself. She looked up at him again, eyes wide, tears glimmering, but now with something new inside them. Trust, a small, fragile piece of it, but real. The janitor gave a small nod, smiling again. That same soft human smile that needed no translation. She blinked and gave a tiny nod back. For the first time, he noticed how young she was. Maybe 10, maybe 12 in human years. A child caught in a war between species who didn't understand each other. He thought about his own daughter, the one he hadn't seen in years, back on Earth. Her laughter. Her small hands drawing smiley faces on his gloves when he went to work. That memory hit him deep. He blinked fast, swallowing the lump in his throat. The alien girl noticed his sudden sadness. She tilted her head, curious. Her glowing eyes dimmed, then brightened again, as if trying to read his emotions. The janitor chuckled softly and wiped his eyes. "I'm okay," he whispered, though she couldn't understand. The moment hung between them, a quiet, pure moment of connection. Two beings who couldn't speak the same words, but understood the same feeling. Then bang, a noise. The station's power flickered. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. A deep alarm began to echo, distant but growing louder. The girl's small body tensed again. Her breathing quickened. The janitor looked around. Something was happening. Maybe the patrols were returning. Maybe a system was restarting. He placed a finger to his lips. "Shh," he whispered gently. The girl froze, watching him closely. He turned off the lamp and listened. The sound was moving and something mechanical far down the corridor. He knew what he had to do. Protect her. He looked at the glove on his hand, the one with the smiley face still drawn on it. The ink was slightly smudged, but the smile remained. He smiled back at it, and whispered to himself, "Let's keep that smile safe." The next part of their story was just beginning. The red alarm light slowly faded away, leaving behind a weak white glow that flickered like a dying candle. The human janitor sat quietly beside the wall, his cleaning robot humming softly beside him. Across the small space, the alien girl still watched him, scared but no longer trembling. The echo of the alarm had scared her again, but this time she didn't run. She stayed close to the lamp he had placed earlier, clutching the small cloth he had given her. The janitor noticed that. It made him smile, not the kind of smile people wear for politeness, but a real one, the kind that comes from seeing a spark of trust in someone's eyes. He whispered softly to himself, "That's it, little one. You're stronger than you think." She tilted her head, trying to understand his tone. Her species communicated more through light than words, the faint glow of her skin changing with emotions. Right now it flickered in soft shades of blue and violet, meaning curiosity and a bit of peace. The janitor slowly leaned forward and picked up a small piece of metal scrap near him. He used it to draw something on the dusty floor, a simple shape, a circle with 2 dots and a line curved upward, a smiley face. He looked at it and chuckled quietly, shaking his head. Some things never change. He turned the drawing toward her and tapped it gently. "Smile," he said, pointing at it. The alien girl looked at the symbol, confused. She didn't understand the meaning yet, but something about it felt soft. It wasn't a weapon or a machine or a command. It was simple, round, peaceful. Her glowing eyes reflected the shape. The janitor picked up his glove, the same one from before, where the inked smiley face still rested on the palm. It was a bit smudged now from dust and sweat, but it was still visible. He showed her the glove again. Slowly he raised his hand and waved. The smiley face moved. For a second, nothing happened. The girl just stared at it. Her breathing was slow, steady. Then, almost without realizing, she blinked twice and tilted her head in a way that almost looked like a question. The janitor grinned and made the glove wave again. "See?" he said softly. "It smiles. It's friendly." The girl made a small sound, a soft chirp almost like laughter in her own tongue. She touched her chest, then pointed at the smiley. Her glowing skin pulsed a bit brighter, a faint golden hue mixing with the blue. He didn't know her language, but he understood what that color meant. Comfort, encouraged. He pulled another glove from his pocket, an old spare one, and handed it toward her. He pushed it gently across the floor. She looked at it for a while, unsure what to do. Then she slowly reached out and took it with her small hands. The glove was too big for her, but she managed to slip her fingers in. It looked clumsy and adorable. The janitor laughed softly, the sound warm and human. "Looks better on you," he said. The alien girl looked at him, confused again, but this time her confusion carried no fear. He pointed to her glove, then to his own, then to the smiley face. He pressed his finger against his chest. "Human," he said. Then he pointed at her. "Friend," her eyes widened. She repeated the sound slowly. "Huh." "Man," he froze. His heart skipped a beat. She had tried to say it, his word. "Yeah," he said softly, voice trembling. "That's right, human." For the first time, the air around them felt lighter. The fear that once filled the room now turned into something else. Something quiet, delicate, and real. The girl looked at her glove again. Then she lifted it, copying his motion, and waved. The janitor's eyes warmed. He waved back. 2 smiles, one drawn, one real, met between worlds. He could see her small face relax. Her glowing lines pulsed gently in a calm rhythm. She was no longer hiding. He reached into his bag again and pulled out a small energy bar and a human ration. He broke it in half and placed one piece on the ground between them. "Food," he said softly. "Eat." She watched him carefully as he took a bite of his piece. Then slowly she copied him. She sniffed it first, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened. She made a tiny sound and a surprised, happy sound. The janitor laughed. "Not bad, right? Human food. You'll get used to it." For the first time since he found her, she smiled, truly smiled. Not because she understood everything, but because she felt safe. The janitor sat back and let out a long breath. The air felt warmer now. He looked at his glove again, at the little smiley face that had started it all. A small drawing made by a tired man who still believed in kindness. He never knew a simple doodle could bridge 2 worlds. But that's what it did. In that dark corner of a broken station, where 2 enemies met by chance, Something far greater was born. A small smile that connected hearts beyond language, beyond fear, beyond stars. And as the girl finished her food and looked at him again with shining eyes, the janitor knew this was just the beginning, because sometimes the smallest smile can start the biggest story in the galaxy. The next day felt quieter. The heavy hum of engines in the station had slowed to a gentle heartbeat. Faint dust floated in the air like tiny stars. The human janitor woke where he'd slept, against a cold wall near the same broken corridor. His old robot beeped once, scanning for power. He rubbed his eyes, stretched, and looked across the room. The alien girl was still there, curled up beside the lamp he'd left glowing through the night. For a second he thought she was asleep, until she blinked at him with bright eyes that glowed a pale gold. The fear was less now. There was something new in her gaze, something gentle. He smiled. "Morning, little one." Of course she didn't know the words, but the warmth in his tone made her eyes sparkle. He pointed at himself. Human, then at her. Friend, she blinked, then copied. Human. Friend. It was clumsy, but it made his chest feel light. He laughed softly. Perfect. The girl giggled, a high musical sound like wind chimes caught in sunlight. The janitor took his glove again, the one with the smiley face. The ink was almost gone now. He looked at it, sighed, and took out his pen. Guess we need a new one. He drew the same smile again, 2 dots and a curved line. Then he waved the glove in front of her. She laughed louder this time. The laugh echoed off the metal wall, soft and pure. That sound, a child's laughter, hadn't been heard on the station for months. It felt like sunlight after a long storm. The janitor leaned back and listened. He didn't know why, but that tiny laugh gave him strength. It reminded him that even here in this silent world of machines and war, there was still life and hope. He took his pen and placed it gently on the floor near her. You try, she looked at it curiously. Then she picked it up, clumsy at first, her hands not made for human tools. But she focused, tongue sticking out a little in concentration. She pressed the pen against the floor and drew. Her glowing lines brightened slightly as she worked. When she finished, she looked up at him with wide eyes. He leaned forward to see. There, beside his drawing, was another smiley, but hers had 3 eyes and sharp teeth. He blinked, then laughed. Oh wow, scarier version, huh? The alien girl tilted her head, unsure, then laughed too. A small burst of joy that made the air feel warm again. They both sat there for a moment, laughing at their silly drawings, forgetting the war, the alarms, the emptiness around them. The janitor looked at her and said softly, You know, you remind me of my daughter. She didn't understand, but she smiled anyway, as if somehow she did. A faint rumble shook the floor, a reminder that the outer sections of the station were still unstable. The girl looked up, worried again. The janitor quickly reached out, showing his glove with the smiley face. He made it wave again. She looked at it, then at him. Slowly, she copied the motion, waving her gloved hand with her own smiley face drawn in her style. 2 smiley faces, 2 beings, 1 human, 1 alien, waving at each other in the middle of chaos. And she laughed again. The janitor's throat tightened. He wanted to freeze this moment, keep it safe forever. He looked at her and said softly, You have a beautiful smile. The girl blinked, not understanding the words, but feeling the warmth. She touched her face, confused, then smiled wider as if to show him she understood that part. Her glow shifted, from gold to a gentle pink. That color, he remembered, meant happiness. The janitor's robot beeped again, detecting movement nearby. He frowned, listening carefully. The sound was distant, maybe a repair drone, maybe something else. He looked back at the girl. We should stay quiet for now. She nodded, a small, quick nod. They hid behind a pile of crates. The janitor watched the corridor as a metal drone floated by, scanning the area with a blue light. He held his breath. The girl held her gloved hand close to her chest. The smiley face pressed against her heart. The drone passed without noticing them. When it was gone, the janitor let out a breath and smiled again. See? All good. She smiled back, a little braver this time. And that was when he realized something. Her smile wasn't just a small thing anymore, it glowed. The lines on her cheeks lit up softly, forming a pattern that looked almost like a star. He stared, amazed. "Beautiful," he whispered. The girl pointed to him, then to herself, and then made a small circle in the air with her finger, a gesture from her people that meant together. The janitor's eyes softened. "Yeah," he said, "together." They sat there side by side, two worlds connected by a simple drawing. In a place built by war, a smile had become a bridge. No grand speeches, no technology, no magic. Just kindness. Just humanity. And somewhere deep inside, the girl laughed again, her laugh echoing softly through the dark halls, carrying the sound of peace. Days passed slowly inside the broken station. The alarms had gone silent now, leaving only the soft hum of power running through half-dead circuits. The cold air carried the faint scent of metal and smoke. The human janitor had made a small space for them, a safe corner near a half-working heater, far from the damaged hallways. He used old blankets, broken panels, and pieces of his cleaning gear to make a tiny shelter. It wasn't much, but it felt like home. The alien girl sat beside him, her glowing skin shining softly in the dim light. The fear in her eyes had faded. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. Every day, they tried to understand each other a little more. The janitor had started drawing pictures on the metal floor using dust and pieces of wire, simple shapes like a sun, planet, tree, and smile. He would point and say the word slowly. "Sun." The alien girl would listen, tilt her head, and repeat in her small, soft voice. "Sun." He'd smile. "Good. Yes, sun." Then she would draw her own version. Her alien sun looked like a glowing ring with lines spinning around it. When she said her word for it, the air around her shimmered faintly. Her voice carried a strange vibration, like music. The janitor couldn't pronounce her word, but he tried anyway, and she laughed every time. Their laughter filled the empty hallways, two voices that didn't belong here but somehow made the place feel alive again. At night, when the lights dimmed, the janitor would look out through a cracked window at the endless stars. The girl would sit beside him watching quietly. He'd point to one of the bright stars and whisper, "That one, maybe it's your home." She would look, her eyes shining with sadness and hope. She didn't know if her family was still alive or if her world had survived. But when he sat beside her, she didn't feel alone anymore. Sometimes she'd hum softly, a melody from her world. The sound was strange, like crystal wind chimes mixed with gentle echoes. It was beautiful. The janitor would close his eyes and listen. He didn't understand the song, but he felt it in his chest. The loneliness, the longing, the peace. When she finished, he'd clap softly and she'd smile again. One evening, the janitor found a small pad, a digital notebook half broken. Its screen still worked a little. He fixed it with some wires and showed it to her. He drew another smiley face on the screen. She giggled and pointed at him. Then she took the stylus and began to draw too. First clumsy lines, then something more clear. She drew him. A human with messy hair, a round head, and a big smile. He looked at it and laughed. "That's me?" She nodded proudly. He drew her next, a small alien girl with glowing skin and big eyes. She looked at it and tilted her head, then added something to his drawing, a little glowing heart between them. He stopped, surprised. Then he smiled, touched the screen gently, and said softly, "Friends." She pointed at the heart and repeated, "Friends." The moment felt light and warm, but deep inside, the janitor knew their peace wouldn't last forever. The station's systems were still unstable. Some alarms blinked red at times. Somewhere beyond the silent walls, others might be looking for survivors, not all of them friendly. Still, for now, this quiet space belonged to them. He taught her to drink from the purifier, how to wrap her arm when it hurt, and how to use the heater when it got cold. In return, she showed him strange tricks, how to use the glowing dust her people carried to make broken circuits work again. It amazed him. She was just a child, but her species had technology that humans could only dream of. One night, she used her glowing dust to repair his cleaning robot's broken eye lens. The little bot beeped twice and came back to life. The janitor grinned. "You fixed him!" She smiled proudly, tapping the robot's head. "Friend," she said again, pointing to it. He laughed softly. "You're making friends with everyone now." The robot beeped in response, making her laugh again. The janitor looked at her, the way her skin glowed softly when she smiled, the way her laughter echoed through the station. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't felt since Earth. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because he'd remembered what it meant to care for someone, even someone from another world. He looked at the glove still on his hand, the one with the fading smiley face. He traced the mark gently and whispered, "You helped us start this, little guy." The alien girl watched him and tilted her head, curious. He simply smiled and pointed at the glove, then at her heart. "Keep smiling," he said. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the meaning. She nodded, pressing her small hand over her heart where the glow shimmered softly. In that small, broken space station, surrounded by emptiness and war, a human and an alien child had built something stronger than fear. A bridge made of kindness. For days, peace lived quietly inside the broken space station. The human janitor and the alien girl had found a rhythm, fixing small machines, sharing food, and watching stars through cracked glass. But peace in space never lasts forever. One morning the station trembled. A deep rumble moved through the metal floor, shaking dust from the ceiling. The janitor froze. His old instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. The alien girl looked up, her glowing skin pulsing in quick flashes of blue. "Fear," he whispered. "It's okay," though his voice sounded unsure even to himself. A faint voice echoed through the corridor, robotic, metallic, speaking in an alien language. The janitor didn't understand the words, but the tone was cold, commanding, "Search units." They were back. He peeked around the corner and saw shadows moving. Tall alien soldiers in silver armor scanning the wreckage. Red scanner lights swept across the floor like knives of light. The girl gasped and hid behind a crate, trembling. Her glow dimmed to gray. The janitor turned off the small lamp beside them. The world became dark again, lit only by the faint flicker of broken lights. He whispered, "Don't move. Don't make a sound." She nodded, pressing her hands against her chest, trying to stop her trembling glow. The soldiers' voices grew louder. Their boots clanged against the floor. One of them spoke sharply, and a blue beam of light cut across the wall, scanning for life. The janitor held his breath. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. He glanced at the girl, her wide eyes staring at him, silently begging for safety. He had no weapon, no plan. He was just a janitor, a cleaner, a man who fixed things and wiped dirt from the floor. But in that moment, he wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about her. He slowly took off his glove with the fading, smiley face and showed it to her, pointing at it gently. Then he placed the glove on her small hand. "Keep this," he whispered. "It's our promise." The girl clutched the glove tightly. Tears welled in her eyes, glowing faintly like small stars. The sound of footsteps grew closer. One of the soldiers turned toward their hiding place. The janitor knew they'd be found any second. He stood up. The girl reached for him, panicking. But he shook his head and smiled, the same gentle smile he'd shown her the first day. "It's okay," he whispered. "Trust me." He stepped out from behind the crate, raising his hands. The light hit him. A human in a dirty gray suit, old, tired, unarmed. The soldiers shouted something in their language. One aimed his weapon at him. The beam's glow filled the hall with blue light. The janitor didn't move. "I'm not here to fight," he said calmly. "Just cleaning up the mess you left." Of course, they didn't understand. To them, he was an enemy, the last human left alive in their zone. One soldier took a step forward, weapon still aimed. The janitor could feel the heat building. Then, a sound. A small, trembling voice called out from behind the crates. The alien girl stepped forward. The janitor's eyes widened. "No, stay back," but she didn't stop. She walked straight toward him, her little hands clutching the glove with the smiley face. Her eyes glowed bright yellow now, courage. The soldiers froze, shocked. One of them lowered his weapon slightly. "The child?" he said in disbelief. The girl ran to the janitor and hugged his leg tightly. Her small body trembled, but she held on. Then she lifted her gloved hand and showed them the smiley face. The symbol glowed under the scanner's light, a simple human smile. The soldiers stared, silent. Their scanners blinked uncertainly. The janitor stood still, his hand still raised. "See?" he said softly. "She's safe." The leader of the squad stepped forward, his silver armor reflecting the dim lights. He looked down at the child, then at the human. The girl pointed to the janitor and said in her broken voice, "Who, man?" "Friend." Her small voice echoed through the hallway. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then the leader lowered his weapon. The other soldiers hesitated, confused. The leader looked at the janitor, then at the girl again, as if trying to understand the impossible, how a human and a child of his kind could stand together like this. The janitor didn't speak. He just looked at them, tired eyes full of quiet truth. Finally, the leader spoke softly to his soldiers. They lowered their weapons. The janitor felt his knees weaken with relief. He looked down at the girl who was still holding on to him. She looked up at him with a smile, the same smile that had once been drawn on his glove. And for the first time, the janitor saw something in the soldier's eyes, and not hatred, not fear, respect. The leader gave a small nod and said something in his language. Then slowly the soldiers turned and left, their steps fading into the distance. The janitor stood there for a long moment, breathing hard. When the silence returned, he finally knelt and looked at the girl. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved us." She smiled wider, her skin glowing golden pink, the color of joy. He laughed softly and hugged her back. In that hug, no war, no fear, no language mattered. Only kindness did. The station was quiet again. The echo of the soldiers' boots had faded, leaving behind only the hum of damaged engines and the slow pulse of lights along the ceiling. The human janitor sat on the cold floor, his back against the wall. Beside him, the alien girl still held his glove, the one with the smiley face that had saved them both. He looked at her, tired but peaceful. "You did great," he whispered. She didn't understand every word, but she felt his meaning. She smiled, a soft golden light spreading across her skin. For a while they just sat in silence. The air felt lighter now, almost alive. The fear that once lived in these halls had turned into something gentle, a story written in warmth instead of war. The janitor looked toward the corridor where the soldiers had disappeared. He knew they would report what they saw. A human and an alien child, not as enemies, but as friends. Maybe that story would travel farther than any weapon ever could. He chuckled softly. A janitor and a kid. Who would believe that? The alien girl tilted her head and smiled wider, her eyes glowing bright as she gently tapped the glove on her chest. "Who, man, friend?" He nodded, his eyes wet with emotion. "Yes, friend." That night they stayed near the same broken window they always watched the stars from. The stars seemed closer now, brighter somehow. The janitor took out his small notebook and began writing with his old pen. The alien girl leaned over curiously, watching as the pen scratched across the page. He wrote simple words about the day they met, the smiley face, the laughter, the danger, the moment she saved him. He wanted to remember everything. When he finished, he tore the page carefully and handed it to her. "Keep this," he said. "A story about us." She touched the paper softly, feeling its texture. Then she pressed it to her chest. Her glowing skin lit up around it, sealing it with warmth. He smiled. "Guess it's safe with you." The next morning, a soft mechanical hum echoed through the halls. A small shuttle had arrived, a rescue. The alien soldiers had kept their word. They hadn't come back to fight. They came with medics and engineers. When they saw the janitor and the girl waiting together, no one raised a weapon. They simply nodded in quiet respect. The alien leader, the same one who had spared them, stepped forward. He said something in his language, then pointed to the girl and to the janitor. His tone was calm, almost grateful. The girl turned to the janitor and spoke softly. "Go with me?" The words were broken but clear. He froze. Part of him wanted to say yes, to see her world, to make sure she was safe. But he looked back at the station, at the ruins that still needed cleaning, repairing. He sighed and shook his head slowly. "No, kid, I stay. This place still needs me." Her eyes dimmed for a moment. Then she nodded, understanding in her own quiet way. He bent down and placed his hand, the one without the glove, and over hers. "You'll be okay," he said softly. "Keep smiling, all right?" She nodded again and lifted her gloved hand. showing the fading smiley face. "Smile," she said. He laughed gently. "That's my girl." The soldiers guided her toward the shuttle. Before stepping in, she looked back one last time. Her eyes met his through the rising steam of the engines. She raised her hand and waved. He waved back, smiling through tired eyes. And then, just before the doors closed, she pressed the glove to the glass. The smiley face shone once more, bright, golden, full of life. The shuttle lifted off, leaving behind a trail of light that vanished into the stars. The janitor stood there for a long while, staring into the endless dark. He touched his chest and whispered, "Thank you." His cleaning robot rolled beside him, beeping softly as if agreeing. He smiled at it. "Come on, buddy. We've got work to do." Together they walked down the corridor, the same place where fear once ruled. But now something new lingered in the air. Peace. Weeks later, stories began to spread. Stories of a human who had saved an alien child. Of a smile that ended a battle before it began. No one knew his name. They only called him the human janitor. And somewhere on a distant alien world, a little girl told her people about the man who drew a smiley face to make her laugh again. That story became legend. A small tale whispered across galaxies. A story that reminded everyone, human or alien, that kindness is stronger than fear, and that sometimes one simple smile can change the entire universe.